if you are a data engineer and you are in Germany, you should learn German. And the German that you learn, it should be related to data engineering, meaning the sentences that you practice, the vocabulary that you learn. Whenever you learn some new grammar topic, and if you want to frame some sentences, try to make sure that those sentences you can use immediately in your professional life. Meaning, don't learn vocabulary like Kartoffel, Tomaten, Blumenkohl. You don't talk about vegetables, right? You talk about data modeling, Datenmodell. You talk about data cleaning, Datenbereinigung. You talk about data visualization, Datenvisualisierung. You talk about creating ETL, using ETL tools. You know how to say. You talk about creating notebooks, running a job, scheduling a job. This is what you should try to speak in German. Yeah. So today's session, you will learn some German grammar, but we will try to make sure that the grammar that you learn, you are able to use that grammar to say sentences, to frame sentences, which you can use as a data engineer in Germany. Yeah. Uh, you have already seen the agenda. I will not don't want to go through it, but we have four parts to cover today. We will cover something called as interrogative article, that is Welche and was für ein, but we'll talk about it, but we don't need to go through the agenda one more time. Let us quickly go through the, let us quickly start. Before we do that, okay, those who want to look at the agenda again, there are four parts. So we have interrogative article Welch. I think there is some mistake. So the fourth part will be data modeling vocabulary. The third part will be W-Fragen mit Präpositionen. We'll cover that. All right. The disclaimer. Please understand, if I have to teach someone German, let's say if you reach out to me and you say, "Hey Rohit, I want to learn German from you. How much time do I need to spend with you?" My straightforward answer will be at least 80 hours. So if you are even willing to spend 80 hours with me, I can not guarantee, but I can actually sleep peacefully at night that okay, I was able to teach you whatever I wanted to teach you per level. So if you want to learn A2 from me, I need at least 80 hours with you. Where you are of course not spending 80 hours with me, because these are complimentary sessions. So you are only spending, I don't know, 16 to 20 hours with me. So you're only spending 1/5 of the time or 1/4 of the time. That means 3/4 of the job is not done. I mean, you can pass exams, but I am not happy. So that means you have a lot of homework to do on your own. You can attend these sessions, you can prepare for the exam, but please understand, you have a lot of homework to do on your own. Yeah. I covered the grammar, I covered the vocabulary. The practice is what you have to do. All right. Let us start with Welche, Welcher, Welchen, Welches, Welchem. Now, what are these? By now, you have already learned W words, right? Like, for example, you know was, wer, wo, wie, right? You know all these things, right? You also learned Welche, right? But because you are learning German, there is always something new to learn. So today, you are supposed to learn when to use Welche, the topic, the headline, when to use Welche, when to use Welcher. To be honest, these both are pronounced the same way, because when a German word is ending with the alphabet R or Er, you don't pronounce it. Yeah, you just leave it as it is. So Welche, Welche, Welchen when it is ending with N, when it ends with S, so Welches, and when it is Welchem. So there are five different variations. Now, when to use which one is important. That is something you are supposed to learn today. Now, is there anyone in the call who wants to read all these sentences for me so that someone has at least some reading practice? And when you read, I want you to, yeah, Vaishali, you can read, but please focus on this. Even though I request you not to pronounce the R at the end of a word, but today I want you to, so that you remember it is ending with R and focus. This is how I want you to read. Welcher Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig? Welchen Cluster? So you have to emphasize. You should not do it when speaking, but today while you are learning, you have to emphasize this part. Please start reading.
Okay, first is nominative. Welcher Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung
No, no, read
zuständig?
properly. Welche Datenverarbeitung?
Datenverarbeitung zuständig. Äh,
Not Ding, zuständig.
zuständig. Studying. Accusative. Welchen Cluster nutzen wir für die Teste? Dativ. Mit welchem Cluster arbeitest du momentan?
Momentan.
momentan.
Here, neutrum.
Uh,
This one.
Welchem Daten
No, no.
Clue.
Here, top right.
Welches Notebook wird für die Datenanalysis
No, no. Try to read properly, please.
verwendet.
Welches notebook with few the. Vaishali, do you mind if I let Sanket read because he works in the data field? If you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Sanket, you can read.
Ja, no, ja. Neutrum, welches Notebook wird für die Datenanalyse verwendet?
Analyse.
Analyse?
Yeah.
Okay. Welches ETL-Tool hast du für die Migration gewählt? Mit welchem Notebook machst du die Analysen?
Feminine. Top left, bottom left.
Ja. Maskulin. Welche Datenquelle wird für die Analyse verwendet? Akkusativ. Welche Datenquelle verwendest du für den Import? Dativ. Mit welcher Datenquelle arbeitest du?
Plural.
Plural. Welche Notebooks sollten wir schreiben? Welche Clusters laufen gerade? Mit welchen Notebooks führst du die Analyse durch?
Okay. Thank you very much, Vaishali and Sanket. So, for some of you who have no idea, I mean, who don't work in the data domain, like stuff, okay, notebook, you may think it's notebook, but a notebook is, I mean, so there is a chance that you may not understand the vocabulary, yeah? Vocabulary may be of no use to you, but today's session was focused towards data engineers, so that's what we will do today. Cluster and what all these things are, you don't have to know. If you know, it's fine. Yeah. If you're a data engineer and you don't know what these things are, please ask. Yeah. So what you should focus on is, right, so here check, here we have, I mean, uh, let me get some markers for that, right? So check, here you have Welcher, right? Here you have Welchen. Here you have Welchem, right? So it is changing, right? Of course, you can say, okay, nominative, so Welcher, accusative, so Welchen, dative, so Welchem. But you don't know these things beforehand, right? How do you know? Like, and then here, I mean, because I pointed it out, here there is something feminine and there is masculine, and that's why it should be Welcher, right? Uh, this is confusing. Now, how you should know all of these beforehand? Let me just erase all these things. Apologies. Yeah, I should not have tried all these things today. Just 1 minute. Now, okay. Now, how do you know, right? Let's say, how do you know? So here you have Welcher cluster, right? And here you have Welchen cluster. So why is it Welcher cluster and why is it Welchen cluster over here? The answer lies in the what cluster is in the sentence. Is it in which case the cluster, in which case cluster finds itself? So is it masculine? Is it accusative? Is it dative? Or what is it? So you have to ask yourself, cluster is like is it nominative, accusative, or dative? Now how do you know whether it is nominative, accusative, or dative? The answer to that lies in what, if you look at this sentence, right? So welcher Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig? Your answer will be, I'm asking you which cluster is responsible for blah blah, which cluster, right? Your answer will be this cluster is responsible for blah blah. So this cluster is the subject of the sentence. Makes sense? And the subject of the sentence is almost always nominative. Yeah, Vaishali, please ask. You have a question? Or was it a mistake? Okay. All right. So, So if you look at the sentence, right, welcher Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig? If I were to answer this question, if I were to answer this question, you know, if I, let's say, if the question is in English, which cluster is responsible for data processing? The answer to this question will be, okay, this cluster, the cluster named blah blah, is responsible for data processing, right? That's what you are going to say. So cluster is the subject of the sentence in the answer, and the subject of the sentence is almost always nominative. And whenever it is nominative, you have Welcher. Let's look at the next sentence. Welchen Cluster nutzen wir für die Tests? Again, to answer why am I using Welchen, replace this. So what will be the answer to this question? The question is, which cluster are we using for testing? You will say we are using this cluster for testing. So you are using a cluster now. So using a cluster. So this cluster will now is the object of the sentence, and the object of the sentence can be accusative or dative. But when you use the verb verwenden or nutzen, the object is almost always accusative. And that's why here it is accusative. So welchen Cluster. Let's look at the next one, right? Mit welchem Cluster arbeitest du momentan? Again, the moment you see mit, right? After mit, so mit is a preposition, and after mit, it's always dative, right? So after dative, and that's why it is welchem. Yeah. If you look at this, and also cluster is masculine. Yeah, so whenever you have after welcher, yeah, so now the question, the answer that question that we're trying to answer is whether it is welcher, welchen, or welchem, right? How is it? The first thing you should ask is the noun masculine neutrum? Is the noun after welcher, then there is a noun associated with the welcher, right? Is the noun masculine, feminine, neutrum, or plural? Once you have figured that out, then you know, okay, where to find the answer. If it is masculine, then you have to come to this table, and now you should ask the noun associated with welcher, whether it is in nominative case, accusative case, or dative case. There can be genitive case as well, but we don't need to talk about that right now. So if it is nominative case, you will have welcher. If it is the noun is in accusative case, you will have welchen. If it is in dative case, you will have welchem. Let's look at the next sentence, the next set of sentences where the noun associated with welcher is feminine. So Datenquelle. Yeah. Here in the first sentence, which data source is used for the analysis? If I were to answer this question, you will say this data source is used for the analysis. So the data source over here is the subject of the sentence, right? So that's why, and when it is the subject of the sentence, it is almost always, oh sorry, this should be nominative over here, not masculine. Okay, this should be nominative. So nominative, so it is welche Datenquelle. Yeah. Now the next sentence, welche Datenquelle verwendest du für den Input? Here Datenquelle is the object. Why object? Because it is being used. When you use something, that something will be the object of the sentence, and the object of the sentence over here, it is in accusative case. So but it remains the same, so it's still welche, but you should know it is accusative. The next one is mit welcher Datenquelle. As I said, after mit, when you have a preposition like mit, after mit, it is always, not almost always, always dative. So it is dative, and when you have dative, it is welcher. Now the question that you should have right now is, how do I know that, okay, masculine nominative welcher, masculine accusative welchen, masculine dative welchem? How do you know all these things? You already know this. Let me tell you how you know this. If I were to ask you, is there anyone who wants to participate? Vaishali, do you want to participate in this short quiz? I will ask some questions, you'll have to answer. Anyone wants to participate? I'll just ask you simple questions about definitive bestimmte article. I want someone to participate. Really? No one? Okay. So if I were to ask you what is the definite article, masculine nominative case, you would say it is there. If I were to ask you what is the definite article in masculine accusative case, you would say it is den. Yeah, n. If I were to ask you what is the definite or bestimmte article masculine dative, you would say it is them. So you know the ending, right? There, den, them. So the same ending rules can be applied to welcher as well, right? If I were to ask you what is the bestimmte article in feminine, okay, this is wrong. This should not be masculine. It should be nominative. If I were to ask you what is the bestimmte article in feminine nominative case, you would say it is the, right? E. It is ending with a. If I were to ask you what is it the bestimmte article in feminine accusative, you would say it is still the. So it does not change. If I were to ask you, okay, what is the feminine dative article, bestimmte article, you would say it is there, right? Air. Am I making sense or am I confusing you guys? What am I trying to say? Like, how do you figure this ending of the Welche? So you already know this. I'm saying you already, okay, you get it. Yeah. So let's look at the Neutrum part, right? So Welches notebook, again, when I say Neutrum here, the noun, the nomen that is associated with Welch is Neutrum. Notebook, ATL tool, notebook. If you are in data engineering, please know that these are Neutrum. So the correct article for them, like correct nominative article is thus, right? So uh, here Welch's notebook, now I'm telling you this is nominative case. Now how do you know this is nominative case? If you look at this, the question is which notebook is used for data analysis, right? The verb itself is telling you, like, so if the answer to will be this notebook, notebook named blah blah, or notebook, under quotes blah blah is used for data analysis. So the notebook over here is the subject of the sentence, and the subject of the sentence is almost always nominative. And because it is nominative, how do you figure the ending of Welches? If I were to ask you what is the definite or bestimmt article in neutrum nominative case, you would say it is thus. So it is ending with s, and that's why the ending of Welcher is also S. Yeah. Here, Welches ETL tool hast du für die Migration gewählt. Again, here, if you look at this thing, which tool did you choose? Now you are choosing the tool. So the tool is being chosen. And this is the object of the sentence. I chose tool named blah blah. So now it is the object of the sentence. And the object of the sentence over here, it is in accusative case. And now again, so what is the end? So now we know that ATL tool is object. The noun that is associated with Welch is accusative, is neutrum, and it is an accusative case. And if I were to ask you, and now you need to find out what is the ending over here of Welch. So I will ask you, what is the definite or bestimmt article in neutrum accusative case? You would say it is thus, right? It does not change, right? Nominative is also thus, accusative it is also thus. So and that's why the ending over here as well, it is Welches. When I talk about dative case, the moment you see mit, after mit it is going to be dative. So and what is thus in dative? You would say it is them. So it is ending with m, and the same ending can be applied to Welch. So Welchem. Plural, right? If I were to ask you, give me the definite articles, in plural case, you will say nominative it is the, accusative it is the, dative it is then. Check the endings as well. E, E, N. Any questions on this slide? Any questions on this slide, anyone? Okay, let me just uh, change this mistakes. Otherwise, I think it's there on the other slides as well. I'll just need 30 seconds. I'll change this mistake on other slides. So now I will remove everything else. I will only keep the Welch part. So that's how it looks like, right? So we looked at sentences. So now you know when Welch is in masculine nominative case. Now you know when Welch is in nominative accusative. So you know all that, right? Now let's just remove everything else, and let's just focus only on Welch. Let's just make it look a little bit better. So now it looks much better. Yes. So this is the table that you will have to remember, right? So when to use Welcher, when to use Welcher, when to use Welchen, when to use Welches, when to use Welchem. This you can figure this out from this table. And as I said, you don't have to remember this table. You already know the table for definite articles. And the endings that you see in definite articles table, you can apply the same endings to Welcher over here. So masculine, you have there. So Welcher. Masculine accusative, you have den. So Welchen. Masculine dative, you have them. M, right? So Welchem. Neutrum, you have thus, them. Similarly, Welches, Welches, Welchem. Feminine, you have the, there. So Welcher, Welcher, Welcher. Plural, you have the. When I say the, I'm talking about the definite articles, right? So definite article would be plural nominative die, plural accusative also die, plural dative den. So die, den, that's why welche, welcher, welchen. So what I'm trying to say, you don't have to remember this table extra. You already know the table for bestimmte article, just apply the same ending rules over here. Any questions so far? So the answer that we have tried to, the question that we have to try to answer so far is when to use Welche, when to use Welcher, when to use Welchen, when to use Welches, and when to use Welchem. If you cannot answer this question, please ask. Okay. Now that you learned Welche, let's now little bit make it a little bit more sophisticated. Now you should know how to use was für ein. Now let's look at this sentence. You know, uh, here. Anybody wants to read? Anybody wants to read just for some reading practice? Okay, I hope not everybody is watching something else. You're paying attention to the session. Okay, so here the sentence is, was für ein Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig, right? Now, when you say was für ein, I can also say welcher Cluster. So if I go back, if I go back in this sentence, here I had welcher Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig. Now, instead of saying welcher Cluster, everything else remains the same, okay? So instead of saying welcher Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig, I just change, I say something else instead of welcher. Everything else remains the same. So here we have was für ein Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig. Now, what is the difference between welcher and was für ein? It's, you can read it, so I have given you the English versions as well. So when you use welcher, it means which. When you use was für ein, it means what kind of. So welch is which, you know this already. Was für ein implies what kind of, what kind of a cluster. Yeah. So was für ein Cluster ist für die Datenverarbeitung zuständig? Yeah, here it is nominative masculine. Cluster is masculine, and here it is in the nominative case. Why nominative case? Again, if I ask you a question, what kind of cluster is responsible for data processing? The answer will be cluster named blah blah or cluster of type blah blah will be responsible for data processing. So here cluster is in the nominative case. Yeah. So here, was für einen Cluster nutzen wir für die Test? What kind of cluster are we using for the testing? Again, here, why it is accusative case? Try to answer this question. What kind of cluster are we using for testing? The answer will be, we are using clusters, blah, blah. Yeah, clusters of type, blah, blah. So here it is in the object, and the object is here accusative case. Here, dative, So here we are using mit was für einem Cluster. Yeah. The moment you use mit, you know that after mit it is going to be dative case. Now what is changing over here? Check. Here we had ein, here we had ein, here we have einen, and here we have einem. I hope you all can focus, right? Here we have ein, here we have einen, here we have einem. Yeah. So ein became einen, and then it became einem. Does this ring a bell? Did you learn this somewhere else? The answer is you have learned this, right? You already know this from the table for unbestimmte article, right? You know ein, einen, einem. You also know feminine is einer, eine, einer. You also know plural, ein. Sorry, not plural. Plural does not exist. Neutrum, you know ein, einem. So, am I teaching you something new? Yes and no. The only thing that you are learning is this question, this phrase, how to say what kind of blah blah. So to say what kind of blah blah, what kind of blah blah, you will have to say was für ein. But the grammar, whether it is ein, einen, or einem, this you already know. If the noun associated with was für ein, if it is in nominative case, then you will say ein. If the noun associated it is with was für ein, it is in accusative case, and the noun happens to be masculine. Okay, it should be not masculine, not masculine. It should be einen. Yeah. If it is dative, then it is einem. Any questions over here? Like, is there something which is confusing you guys? Okay. Okay, I hope everybody understood. Yeah. I'll just look at the feminine one as well. Was für eine Datenquelle? Datenquelle is feminine, and here it finds itself in the nominative case. So we have eine. Was für eine Datenquelle? here datenquelle, I mean datenquelle is feminine data source, and here it finds itself in that accusative case. It remains einer. We know that when you go from nominative to accusative, only masculine changes, right? So ein becomes einen, right? Feminine eine remains einer. Even neutrum ein remains ein. So I'm saying you don't need to learn something new. Only thing you're learning new is how to say was für ein or what kind of. Here mit was für einer Datenquelle. Again, when you're talking, you don't have to pronounce the R part. You can just say mit was für einer Datenquelle. Here it is in dative case because you are using mit, and so it is dative case and the noun is associated with it is feminine. So feminine noun dative unbestimmter Artikel einer. Let's look at the neutrum case. So notebook, we assume it is uh, neutrum. So was für ein Notebook wird für die Analyse verwendet. Here it is in nominative case. So you have ein. Here it is in was für ein ETL-Tool hast du für die Migration gewählt. Here it is in accusative case. So it is, but because it is neutrum, it is still ein. Here mit was für einem Notebook machst du die Analysen, plural. Here it is dative case because you have mit, and it is neutrum. So dative neutrum einem. Yeah. Again, check the sentences remain the same, right? If I go back to the examples from Welchem, so Welche, if you look, Welches notebook wird für die Analyse verwendet. Here you are asking which notebook is used for data analysis, here. I mean this one. I hope you know what I mean. This one, this part, okay? Top right, yeah? Yeah, so Welches notebook wird für die Datenanalyse verwendet. And now I'm just framing it again with the help of was für ein. So was here. Why? So was für ein Notebook. Here check. The rest of the sentence remained the same. Instead of asking welcher, I'm using was für ein. Any questions so far? Okay, so far you have learned welches, when to use welche, how the ending of welcher looks like, and when does the ending change and how to remember those endings. You also learned how to say what kind of questions. So you also learned that. All right. Uh, if no more questions, then just let's remove the rest of the sentence and only focus on was für ein. So uh, that's how it is looks like. Was für ein, was für einen, mit was für einen. And this is what this table you need to remember. You know this table already. So was für ein, maskulin nominative, was für einen, maskulin accusative, was für einem, maskulin dative, neutrum, was für ein nominative, was für ein also accusative, was für einem will be dative. So ein, einen, einem, ein, einem, feminine, einer, einer. Yeah. So you know this table already. You just have to add the was für part. Any questions on this table? Okay, if there are no more questions, let us now talk about something new. By that I mean let's look at. So in the last session, I told you that you are supposed to learn verbs with prepositions. So whenever you learn a verb, please learn which preposition you can use with it. Yeah. So last sessions, I think you learned around 20 verbs with prepositions. Let's look at one such verb. So abhängen von jemandem oder etwas dativ. It means to depend. Yeah. So you can say es hängt von dem Wetter ab. Yeah. So it depends on the weather. But let us just say, I want to ask questions on what does it depend or on whom does it depend. You know, let's say you are my boss and you are asking me, hey, when will be the project, when will you send me the report, or when will be the report be ready, right? I will say it depends, right? It depends. Now you are my boss, you'll say, okay, it depends on what. Yeah. So it depends on what does it depend. Or you can also ask on whom does it depend, who is responsible for the delay, right? So you will ask questions like this, right? On what does it depend? On whom does it depend? If I say something like, I am thinking, then you will say, okay, what are you thinking about? Or you can also be cheesy about it and you say, okay, whom are you thinking about? Yeah. So you can ask these questions, right? If you say that, if I say, yeah, I look forward, I'm looking forward. I'm leaving information, right? So you will ask, right? Okay, what are you looking forward to, or whom are you looking forward to? So how to ask these questions in German? That is what you will learn now. So again, asking, anybody wants to read? Okay. So es hängt von dem Wetter ab. Yeah. So if you want to ask, on what does it depend, you will say on wovon, check over here, wovon hängt das ab. But if you want to ask on whom does it depend, if it's a person, you will say von wem hängt das ab. Look at the verb denken an jemand. If you want to ask questions like with respect to denken, you can say woran denkst du, on what are you thinking? Or if you are asking with respect to a person, like, on whom are you thinking, or about whom are you thinking, you will say an wen denkst du. Similarly, if you have the verb teilnehmen, if I say I am taking part, you'll ask, okay, what are you taking part in, right? So you will say, woran, I mean, here I'm saying woran nimmt sie teil, because I want to say on what is she taking part. The question that you should have by now is, so I'm saying wovon and I'm saying von wem. Yeah. So when to use wovon and when to use von wem. Also, the question that you should have over here is that here I said wovon because the preposition of was von, and I added the question wo, so wovon. But over here, denken an, I did not say wo an, I said woran. So I added the extra alphabet r between an and wo. You should have this question. I also did this over here. So here sich freuen auf. So I did not say wo auf, I said worauf. I added the alphabet r over here. Yeah. So you should have this question, why did I add this alphabet r over here? Let's look at some more examples. So we'll try to answer these questions, but before we do that, let's look at a few more examples. So warten auf, again, we covered all this last session. So warten auf jemanden, to wait for something or someone. If you want to ask, what are you waiting for? You will say, worauf wartest du? If you want to ask, for whom are you waiting? You will say, auf wen wartest du? Yeah. Again, sprechen mit. If you want to ask, with whom are you talking? You will say, mit wem. Here, sprechen über. The preposition is über. If you want to ask about what are you talking, you will say, worüber. Again, I have added the alphabet R. Yeah, check. If you want to ask about whom are you talking, then you will say, über wen. Yeah. Let's look at few more examples. Here, sorgen für jemanden. If you want to ask, what are you taking care of, then you will say wofür. Again, I did not add the alphabet R over here. Why? I'll answer that question. So I did not say wofür, I just said wofür. And if you want to ask, for like whom are you taking, whom are you taking care of, you will say über wen. Denken über. We had denken an. We also have denken über. If I go back, you know, somewhere I have denken an. Check over here. I have denken an. Now we also have denken über. Yeah. So if you want to ask, what are you thinking about, then you will say worüber denkst du and an wen denkst du. Yeah. Kämpfen, to fight. So what are you fighting for whom are you fighting? So again, I did not use r, right? I just said wofür and I did not say wofür. Let's look at a few more examples. Sich kümmern I take care of the flowers. If you want to ask, what are you taking care of, you will say worüber kümmerst du. If you want to say whom are you taking care of, you will say über wen. Yeah. Now let us try to, we can continue these examples, but let us try to answer. So what did you learn so far? So when you learn a verb, you should also learn the prepositions, which was the instruction last session, that when you learn a verb, learn prepositions as well with it. And when you want to ask questions, you will need these prepositions. So far you learned questions like wovon, worüber, wozu, woraus, womit, woran, wohin, worauf, wovor, wodurch. Then you also, so these are questions. And then you have the next list of questions, that is von wem, über wen, zu wem, aus wem, mit wem, an wen, in wen, durch wen, vor wem, durch wen. Now, when to use wovon and when to use von wem, when to use worüber and when to use über wen, the answer is pretty simple. You say wo and then the preposition. When you are talking about something which is not a living being or not a person, you use the preposition and then the correct appropriate W word when you the question is related to a person. So the answer is uh, when there is it's when it's a person, you use the preposition and then the appropriate W word. When it is not a person, then you use wo and then the preposition. Now one more question is when to use are. So I said when you are asking the question about something which is about someone who is not a person or about something, then you should say wo and then you should say the preposition. So wo plus preposition. But sometimes you will have to add the R part, R alphabet. When to add the alphabet R? Answer is pretty simple. You use R when the when the preposition is starting with a vowel. So you check fau, phone has fau. Fau is not a vowel, so we don't add the R part. Here, Uber is starting with U. U is a vowel, so we add the R part. Su, set is not a vowel, so we don't add the R part. Aus is a vowel, so we add the R. Vomit, M is not a vowel, so we don't add the R. An, A is a vowel, so we add the R. Hin, Ha is not a vowel, so we don't add the R part. Auf, A is a vowel, so we add R. Fa, again, Fa is not a vowel, so we don't add the R part. Vodush, De is not a vowel, so we don't add the R part. Is it clear when to use R, when not to use R? Is it clear?
I just want to know, we are using are when we are talking about a person or a thing.
No, we are not a person.
I can you please repeat?
Yeah,
I
sure,
heard,
sure,
but
sure. Yeah, I think the slide is a little bit misleading. So,
Mhm.
you have two sets of questions. Let's say there is a verb, and you want to ask a question with respect. If you say, like you want to ask, what are you thinking about, right? So
Mhm.
with the verb is denken, and the correct preposition is über. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
correct preposition is über. Now, if you want to say, what are you thinking about? This is you are asking a question that is not person, right? So what, about which thing you are thinking. You can also ask, whom are you thinking about, right? So this is a
Mhm.
question related to a person. When you want to ask question related to a person, then you will have to use über, the preposition, and the appropriate W word. Yeah. But if the question is not related to a person, what are you thinking about? Then you will have to use wo and the preposition. Make
Can you
sense?
give me the example of vor Uber on vor Uber? Vor
Yeah,
Uber.
yeah, sure, no problem. Let me, yeah, I think the slide is on the next. Yeah, let me just do it. So, you were vain. To be honest, like when you are not honest, but to be more specific, you should go with unvain. Yeah, it's fine. Übervain denkst so it's fine. So, and then here we have, yeah, I think this is much better. So, let us look at these four questions. So if let's say, I can ask you, oh, there is a question mark missing. Let me just add the question mark. Much better. So I can ask, mit wem fährst du nach Hause? With whom are you going home or are you driving home? Now the question is, can I also say womit fährst du nach Hause? It will be wrong because you say womit only when you are the question. I'm expecting that you are going home. It's not a person, but you cannot go home with not a person, right? Because that question will be like, if I say vomit gehst du nach Hause, it may sound like I'm asking, are you traveling by car, are you traveling by train, or are you going by bicycle, something like that. So if the question that you are asking, yeah, if the question, the the answer that you are looking for with the help of a question. So if I say mit wem fährst du nach Hause, the answer will be like, mit I don't know, with person A, person B, person C, your colleagues, right? This is the answer that I'm expecting. But if I say womit beschäftigst du dich, here it means, with what are you busy right now. Here your answer cannot be I'm busy with person A, because that will be awkward. What I'm expecting the answer is to be, with which project are you busy right now, or with which report are you busy right now. With, the answer will not be a person, it will be something non-person. Makes sense?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And when it is a person, so when the question is related to a person, you use the preposition and then the appropriate W word. If it is not a person, what do you do is you just say wo and then the preposition. Yeah. But there is one more hint, like point to remember over here. When you use wo and the preposition, you may have to sometimes add the alphabet R. And when to add the alphabet R? Answer to that question is if the preposition is starting with a vowel. Yeah. So now one thing, people, if you're already living in Germany, if I teach this to you, you may feel this is so silly, I don't need to learn this, because you know this by practice. I was talking to some kid and I asked him, like, I was teaching him this and he says, I know all this, why are you teaching me? But and I asked him, okay, tell me the rules. So he was like, Wofon is right. And I told him, can I say Worfon? And he said, no, no, you cannot say it. And I asked him, okay, what is the rule? He did not give me the rules, but it's fine. He knows how to speak, and because he plays, like he's in Germany, he is a kid and he picked up the language very quickly. So he does not remember, does not know the grammar rules, but he knows what is right and what is wrong. Yeah. So I had to tell him that, okay, when you have a preposition, then you add the R part. If you don't, there is, I mean, when the preposition starts with a vowel, you add the R part. If it does not start with a vowel, you don't add the R part. And he was like, okay, now it makes sense. Yeah. But that kid did not need to learn the grammar because he knows it, just because of practice. Any questions on this topic? Okay. So please remember what I want you to take away. So in the last session, I last or second last sessions, I showed you all these prepositions. So I told you, when you learn a grammar, when you learn a verb, for example, verb like sich kümmern, it means to take care. Also learn jemanden etwas Akkusativ, so that you can say ich kümmere mich, and then you can say provide more information. I take care of blah blah. If you say uh, uh, if you say, for example, denken, I'm thinking, you should be able to provide more information. I'm thinking about something. So to say about, you will have to say über. Yeah. So because you learned the verb with the prepositions, now you can also ask questions. If you see someone in the office, and they are like, lost in their thoughts, you can go and ask them, like, worüber denkst du? Or if you are cheesy, you can say, an wen denkst du? Yeah. So uh, let's so again, there is a chance that not all of these verbs will may be related to your professional life. So the idea is that when you please make a list of all the verbs that are relevant to your life, and then learn the prepositions that can be used along with these verbs. And now this, you're supposed to do this last time, and now you are supposed to frame W questions, wo questions, like, I mean, questions like these. Yeah. So wovon, von wem, worüber, über wen. Any questions over here? Okay. If there is no question, then we can start with the vocabulary part. What we will do is we will end this call, and I will post the link for the vocabulary call, and we can do the vocabulary. Is there anyone in the call who is not already in the group, so that I can send you the link right away in the chat? Anyone in the
I
okay,
think
wait.
I'm not in the group.
You're not in the group? Wait, let me send you the link right away.
Please.
Yeah. I will also request, I mean, if you want, you can send me a message and then I will add you to the group. Uh,
I'll do that. Thanks.
yeah, I'll send you the, before we do that, I'll post the link in the chat so that you can copy it. So yeah, this is the link. please copy it in some other browser or in some other like Word document, because once I end the call, you will not have access to the chat. So yeah, I'll count from 10 to 1 and I'll end the call. If by 1 you have not copied, please interrupt. Yeah. So 10, 9.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone has the link. Okay, I'll end the call. Please join using this link. See you.